A quick shout out to the good folks at Springs Homes for supporting Studio 809 and this podcast. They're in the business of real estate because they love helping clients achieve their goals. Competitive, collaborative, and trustworthy. Meet the real estate pros at springshomes.com.
This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my photography website, my columns at the Colorado Springs Independent, all the other podcasts we've done, all that kind of good stuff. Everything you want to know, or you probably don't want to know, you can find at hikingbob.com. And with me today is my co-host, Kevin Wild Westendorf. Say hi, Kevin.
Hey everyone, it's Kevin Wild Westendorf here, and you can find me most active on my social media, primarily Instagram and Facebook, and a little bit on Twitter at Wild Westendorf, and on my website, www.wildwestendorf.com.
Awesome, Kevin. And we're going to start off with something real quick. We talked a lot last week, and then I did a column at the Indy about the opening of North Cheyenne Canyon. And we talked about there was a news release that came out, and then we heard that there were some discrepancies with that. Well, unfortunately, that has continued on. After I talked to you and after the column went in the Independent, there was still, I don't want to say the rumor mill, but I was getting stories that somebody at the Parks Department was saying, no, we've heard it's going to be the middle of June. And then I found out that the people who live up in the top end of the canyon were being told that the park wasn't going to be open till sometime in July. And obviously confusing mess. And in the meantime, the Parks Department changed the website. Didn't really tell anybody, but they changed the website and they took out that May 31st completion date and just put sometime in the summer. So a lot of things happened there, created a lot of confusion. I had people call me saying, hey, that's not what I heard. This is not what I heard. Initially, I'm hesitant to get too much involved in the rumor mill, but I owe it to the listeners to get the right information. And when I'm getting this information, I don't want to just blow it off, although sometimes it's my tendency. It's like, I'm hearing this from too many people. I need to correct it. So I did an interview on Monday, 2 days before you're hearing this, with Aaron Egbert, who is the project manager for the city of Colorado Springs for this bridge project. And we're going to go right into that interview right from here, which I think is going to answer most of the questions. So let's get started with that right now. Today I'm talking to Aaron Egbert. He is with the city of Colorado Springs. He is the manager of the project for the replacement of the bridges in North Cheyenne Canyon. And we're going to talk to him about how the project is going along. So Aaron, thank you for being on the podcast. Tell us, how is the bridge replacement project going along there, and how are we doing on the timeline?
Well, we're working hard at it. It has been a very challenging project. The canyon is very narrow. We've had some challenges. Back in 2020, the middle bridge, we call it Bridge C, was inspected and determined that it needed to be load posted to 4 tons, which is about the size of a large pickup truck. So we had to build a bypass around Bridge C. And when we built that in March of 2021, and we started this construction in the fall of 22, we were unable to get girders passed through that bypass, which is needed for the emergency vehicles. There was just a fire up there this weekend, I believe, that they had to get fire trucks to. So having that bypass there that's paved was really important to make sure that emergency services had access to the residents in the canyon and the users of the canyon in any kind of a fire situation up there. So what that caused is we needed to finish the bridge deck and get it cured on Bridge C to our final strength so that we could haul the girders over the top of that bridge to get to the upper bridge at D. So once that bridge deck cures, once we kind of know time frame, I believe at the end of this month, start of next month, we'll be able to give the residents and the users of the park more of a firm number on when the park will be open to vehicles. The park is open to pedestrians and hikers right now. We do ask that pedestrians and hikers stay off of the road as much as possible. It's just not safe with the contractor and them kind of having an interface with each other. So please just follow the signs and try to make it as safe of a work environment as possible.
Okay, and thank you for that. It's really a good synopsis of what's going on there. And yeah, 4 tons is not enough. I mean, I drove fire trucks for years of 20 tons. They're not going to get a fire truck past that at all. We've heard May 31st, and now we're hearing some other dates. So is it possible, or you tell me, will we be able to be driving on that bridge, on those bridges, before all the fancy fine finishing work with the stonework and stuff has to be done? Is that a possibility we may be seeing? Because what people really want to know is, when can I drive back up there?
Yeah, and that is possible. It's one of our tools in our toolbox would be to basically put flaggers on each side of the bridge. It is more expensive because there's more labor that needs to be done there, but that is one of the things that we are kicking around, is how much work can we do with vehicular traffic on the road. But once again, that just gets into risk management. How safe is it for the workers? How safe is it for the public? Those bikes go faster than cars down that road. So we just have to balance all of those needs and risk factors to make sure that whatever we are opening up and when we're opening it up, it's the right thing to do. There could be some weekends open, potentially, could be some stuff during the weekdays, but we'll know more in the next month or so.
Okay, and that's one of the things I was going to ask you too. Is there possible there may be periodic closures during the week to move equipment around or to facilitate some work that you just can't work around traffic? That's all possibility, even after the project, even after the road opens?
Yes, but potentially,
Okay.
yes. We have been opening it up to the residents that live up there when
Sure.
we can safely let them get through the construction zone.
Okay.
But it's a little harder controlling the general public just because they want to park their car there. We kind of have to have hard closures with the general public just because they'll park and go hiking for a long period of time. And if we move equipment in the way, they won't be able to get out. So it just creates a different set of challenging with general public versus residents.
This is really good information to know. So I guess in about a month, you'll have an update for us, hopefully, or maybe in about a month, we'll get a better beat on what's going on. We get past April, which can be iffy as far as weather goes.
Yeah, I think once we get some of these big milestones done, we'll be able to communicate more with how we're going to either do, how the full opening is going to go and when it's going to happen, or is there going to be partial openings? How's that going to look? We do want to give the contractor as much room as possible to do their job.
Sure. I think that's the important thing there. That canyon is so narrow, you just can't do construction and traffic all at the same time. It just there's not enough room to do all that kind of stuff. Aaron, thank you so much. Anything else you want to tell us before we go that the listeners can chew on while they're waiting for this project to get done?
I just want to point out that when this project is over, we'll be having a video that we've created with our in-house video crews. So I just encourage people to go to the website. I think some of the videos are up there, kind of how we're embracing the historical nature of these bridges inside the historical park, how we're balancing that context, those type of things. So I just encourage your listeners to go to the website to get updates, also watch some of those videos. And hopefully when we get done with the project, we'll have a really good outline of you can kind of see the sequencing of how a bridge actually was demolished and then how it was constructed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Aaron Egbert with the City of Colorado Springs and the project manager for the North Cheyenne Canyon Bridge Replacement Project. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, so there it is. That's what's going on with the project, and hopefully we'll get it straightened out. I think the best answer if somebody says, when is that going to happen, is nobody's really sure. And I think we'll know more in about a month, probably around the end of April. A lot can depend on weather, but I think we'll find out more about that by the end of April. So hopefully we can put this whole bridge project thing to rest. Not going to go to rest, I guess, until it's open. But on the other hand, I think some people are kind of liking going up in the canyon and not having cars with the noise.
Nice.
You don't have the noise of the cars, but if you go there on a weekday, you have a whole lot of noise from the equipment up there. So it's not exactly quiet unless you're up there on a weekend. So Kevin, I think cross your fingers that sometime this summer, that project will get done. A couple other topics here. National Park Service Week starts on the 16th, which is a week from this coming Saturday. And that's going to last a week. And there's always all kind of events with that. The nice thing about that first day of National Park Service Week is a free day for any of the parks that charge an admission fee. They will waive that fee on the first day. So like you want to go up to Flores and Fossil Beds National Monument, for example, you can get in for free. And I think that's a lot of fun. Kevin, you get a park pass, though, don't you? Do you get a park pass every year anyway?
Yep, as a birthday gift. So,
There you
and
go.
it's the best way to do a birthday gift because I get the pass and I get to go on all these adventures and parks for free. So, and it pays for itself very quickly.
Yeah, that and the Colorado State Parks Pass, which next year is going to be $29 added to your vehicle registration, is going to become an even better deal. So those things are coming up. But National Park Service Week is always a lot of fun. By the way, I don't know if you saw, but the oldest park ranger, interpretive ranger for the Park Service, retired last year. She was 100 years old. She didn't even become a park ranger until she was 85. And she was at the Rosie the Riveter National Historic Site, I believe is what it was. So she'd been there about 15 years, starting at 85, for crying out loud. Retired at 100 and was still on her last day. Apparently she was still giving people tours and things like that of that site. I think that's awesome. I think just that the fact that the National Park Service hired her when she was 85, I think that says a lot about how she was and how the Park Service was, and how they do things. And I just think that's awesome. I think there's hope for me yet that I can continue doing this kind of stuff. Maybe at 85, I'll be no, probably not. That's probably not going to happen. But anyway, I thought it was pretty cool that we had a park ranger who retired at 100, and I thought it was even cooler that she didn't even start till she was 85. I think it's pretty neat.
And I think it's a testament for our Parks Service. Like a common thing is that the National Park Service is the best idea that America has ever had. And I've read many, many, many stories like this, not just someone who is older, but for people of color, for women, for various groups who are marginalized or have been in the past. The national parks has always been kind of on the forefront in terms of progress. And I think that starts with a desire to protect the land, because I think that that's more of a natural progressive. I'm not sure that's the right word for it, but I think that helps foster a type of mindset. And yeah, I just think it's great. And I think it shows that this woman very likely became a park ranger and retired at 100, not because she needed to pay the bills, but it's out of a passion and love for the land.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is the whole idea of conservation of our lands, whether they were national parks or national monuments, and even the forests, for crying out loud, U.S. forests, all comes from a more conservative mindset early on, to conserve these things. I don't know how that's morphed. I'm not sure why that is. To be honest with you, I'm not sure that I care, other than the fact that as long as we keep doing it and we keep protecting the appropriate lands, and obviously finding a right balance between lands that we use as parks and monuments and lands that we use for agricultural and things like that. But yeah, I think it says a lot about the National Park Service that they would actually hire somebody at that age. I think really says a lot for them. And then obviously, I think it's safe to say she's probably the exception in a pool of people 85 years old who were able to do that. But again, that talks about how they were able to recognize that she was somebody who was exceptional enough to be able to do that work. And it's pretty neat. One more other thing real quick, Kevin, we have talked a lot, speaking of federal lands, while we're talking about it, we have talked a lot about places that are falling under some kind of use restrictions, whether it's advanced reservations or, fee-based systems, or where dispersed camping is switching over to a more formalized camping so they can control the number of people in there. News came out last week that yet another place, and this one operated by the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, is going to convert to a fee-based system. This is a place called Rabbit Valley. This is on the west side of Colorado, up against the Utah border. You and I have been in the same area. It's in the McGinnis Canyons National Conservation Area, which is right next to Colorado National Monument. It's kind of squeezed between the Colorado National Monument and the Utah border. There's a place in there called Rabbit Valley, and they're going to immediately require camping reservations for camping there, and they're going to be building or revamping campsites open no later than next spring. So they're basically putting a halt to free camping, dispersed camping, camping wherever you want. And this is an area that's mostly used for motorized users. And again, they're trying to find a way to handle the large number of people who keep visiting that area and are camping there. And as you can imagine, it's probably hordes of people and managing it. And when you just allow people to camp anywhere, you can't control the numbers. And if you can't control the numbers, you can't control the effects of it. But here we are, yet another example of moving towards that type of management system.
And actually, Rapid Valley was my originally planned first stop when I did my Utah trip last year. And then, as I talked about on the show, I was at Rifle Falls State Park and I hit my head really, really hard. So I had to go to Grand Junction and all that. And just because my head hurt really bad and such, I decided to skip that part and just head down to Moab, because I was planning on staying in Rapid Valley to hike in Colorado National Monument. And there's some kind of weird curse about that place because it's like the third or fourth time I've tried to hike there and something happens.
Well, you know my story about what happened to me, so.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to stop there this summer. It is for sure going to happen. I have made a promise to myself, but so I never got to check out the specific Rapid Valley area. But from the way he's described, it sounds very, very familiar to a large dispersed camping area that's north of Moab. And I personally have seen like the crowds up there for Memorial Day, and I can see why they want to limit the crowds, because I saw firsthand how easily the land is torn up. And especially in this area, I'm not sure about Rapid Valley, but the boundaries of this land that's north of Moab is not clear. So people were just kind of going further and further, and you can clearly see where the damage is being done compared to where there's still a lot of plant life and such.
Were they actually encroaching into the top end I'm trying to think of where this is, in the top end of Arches National Monument?
Yeah.
And there, I think I know what you're talking about. It's because that's kind of across the highway from where the turnoff is to go into Canyonlands.
Yeah. Yep.
So that goes west. So it's kind of like on the east side of the road there, kind of where maybe kind of north of the airport a little bit. The airstrip is up there.
North of the airport, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of know the area you're talking about. Yeah, that's kind of a squishy kind of no man's land area up there, and I could see where that would get to be a bit of a problem. I didn't realize that there was that much dispersed camping going on back in there, but I can see where that could be a problem, especially if they end up into the national park. Could definitely be an issue. So we're seeing more and more of these things. Anyway, Kevin, Cheyenne Mountain State Park had a couple of cabins installed. They've been on the plans since the park was built some years ago. And if you go into the park, go to the very top end of the park where the campsites are, there's a circle there, and most of that circle, there's nothing there. That was designed for cabins. And they finally got money for 2 cabins. They were going to open them up last year. They wanted them open up by the end of the year. And then as it turned out, when they did all their testing and stuff, it turned out they had a problem with radon, which is a poisonous gas that comes out of some parts of the mountains here. So they have been fighting with getting radon mitigation measures installed into these cabins, which typically is mostly fans and ventilation. One cabin got resolved pretty quickly. The other one didn't until just recently. So these 2 cabins at Cheyenne Mountain State Park are finally going to open, and you'll actually be able to, I don't want to say luxury because they're cabins, but I've been in them. Unfortunately, before we even knew there's a radon issue. So I'm not sure that was a good idea, but we didn't know, but I wasn't in there very long. I will tell you, these cabins are gorgeous. They're really nice. They have some limited amenities. The bathrooms are really nice. They're ADA accessible, so there's actually a paved sidewalk up to them.
Oh,
so
cool.
They have big wide doors, and on the back side there's a paved patio. The bathrooms are ADA accessible. They don't have like a stove in them, so you can't cook inside other than on a microwave, but they do have barbecue pits and fire pits in the back.
Oh, okay.
There's just 2 of them. I think they're renting for about $120 a night, and you have to rent them for 2 nights. You have to do that through the CPW website, but I think they're going to be insanely popular. And I know they want to put more of these things in, and hopefully they will. Hopefully this radon issue doesn't prove to be a big problem. Kind of cool that Cheyenne Mountain State Park, which is already third newest state park to be built from the ground up, and I'm thinking Sweetwater Lake up in the north part, but that's kind of the state CPW has taken that over from the Forest Service. It's got some pretty good amenities. It's already got a lot of amenities, and when it was built some years back, it was like the most well furnished, equipped state park in the state park system. So it's pretty cool. And now they're just adding something else. This is kind of on the heels of Mueller State Park, which has some cabins. I've heard that these are much nicer than the cabins up there, but those cabins at Mueller are insanely popular, and people, you just can't get one. If you don't reserve at the beginning of the year, you probably just can't even get one. I think the same thing is going to happen with these at Cheyenne Mountain.
Oh yeah. Actually, how old is Cheyenne Mountain State Park?
Cheyenne Mountain State Park is 16 years old.
And according to Wikipedia, it's kind of been an open space type of like land kind of since the early 1920s.
The story that I have from it is it used to be an old ranch, and when they built NORAD into Cheyenne Mountain, the Cheyenne Mountain, with now the Cheyenne Mountain Air Station, right above it. Apparently, that kind of killed the water supply for the ranch.
Oh, okay.
Because there's absolutely no water in that park. There's no streams. There's no creeks. And the only water that's in that park is when it rains or snows. There just isn't any up there. So I think that kind of killed off the agricultural use of that, and then it sat there for a while, and then by whatever means happened, the state was able to acquire it. And a large part of that has also been acquired by the city of Colorado Springs through the TOPS program, the Trails and Open Space program, that 1/10 of 1% sales tax. And that had been acquired by the city, and then there's an agreement signed or whatever happens there that ownership of it remains with the city, but management of it goes to Colorado Parks and Wildlife to manage it as part of their state park. And as a matter of fact, there was just another piece in the last year or so bought on the far south end of it that's going to eventually connect to some even more remote stuff, that you can get a little kind of remote back there on the South Talon Trail. This is south of that even. So there's some more remote areas. So the footprint of that park has gotten a lot bigger, and it's a lot bigger than would appear when you're looking at a map of it and you look at where the trails are. There's a lot more footprint to that state park that's immediately obvious when you look at just a trail map or something like that. So, and when they built it, there were all kinds of things going on. I know that there's also a plan in effect to add some more parking to it as you go up the park road past the Lime Kiln Trailhead. There's a couple little places there you can park. There was a spot there where they were going to build like an event center kind of a thing. And that never came to fruition, but there's a big flat piece of land there. And I think part of it's going to be some more campsites, and part of it is also going to be some additional parking. So that, because you can go up the road a little bit, and just before you get to the campgrounds, you can make a left turn. There's an amphitheater there, and there's some very limited parking at that amphitheater. You know where that is, yeah. And across the road from that is the Camper Services building. You can park there and do a little camping, but those are very limited areas, and there's a lot of times there's weddings and things that are going up at the amphitheater, and there's not much parking for them. And now they've done this system where they've had to get shuttle buses. It kind of gets to be a little crazy. So they're going to add some more campsites and more parking. That place is insanely popular. I bet you right now, if you want to get a campsite there, probably in October, you probably can't even get one. So it's full up, and it fills up pretty quickly. But kind of good news that these cabins are going to open. You're not going to go there and glow in the dark from anything. They really they worked really hard to mitigate that.
I was going to say, I think it's great to learn that they are expanding southward. because I know every time I drive on Highway 115 towards Canyon City, because of my experiences in the Beaver Creek State Wildlife Area and Aiken Canyon, I just look at that whole little range of mountains right there, and it's just, I know it's a ton of private land, but I'd like to see what we can do in the future for acquiring the like land that we can. Because I look at those mountains, it's like, man, there must be some amazing hikes to do up there. It's just like I said, a lot of it is private land, or it's not developed, or no one really owns it except for the national forest. I would love to see more options out that way.
One of the issues that they've had with that is they can add on this land, but then if CPW is managing it and managing it as a state park, there's some expectation of being able to have a presence there. How many park rangers do you need? How much staff do you need to maintain it? Stuff like that. One of the recent purchases on the very south end also included a house that was on the property. And I had seen the house, and I think part of the idea is eventually, and as you and I both know, hiring seasonal rangers right now for Cheyenne Mountain State Park is pretty hard to do because they don't get paid a lot, and if they're not from the local area, housing is, as we're all very well aware, tends to be pretty expensive in the Colorado Springs area right now. So if they're coming in for their contracts usually for 9 months, used to be only 6 months for seasonal. Now it's 9. They come in for 9 months. If they're not from here, they got to find a place to rent. You know that's expensive. So part of the idea was they may be able to offer this as staff housing. For seasonal rangers, or as a ranger station, or as a combination of a backcountry quote unquote ranger station with some quarters for them to stay in so that they can do it. So I know that's one of the things they're looking at. If you go up the Dixon Trail and you go past where the bike and horse turnaround is, and you keep going up there, just before you get to where Cresta Hill, by where the plane wreck site is, if you look back down the south, there's that deep canyon that's way back in there that you kind of can't get to from Old Stage Road, and you can't get to from the Dixon Trail. I believe that was also purchased as part of the state park, or at least land that you can see from there. And that's a deep canyon way back in there, kind of hard to get to, that eventually will be some kind of amenity for the park. But these things are way down the road. Obviously, but the first part, of course, is to acquire the land so that you can hold it and use it. And through the TOP program, the owners had to be willing to sell, so nothing was taken from anybody. They were paid fair market value for it and that kind of stuff. So kind of exciting, I think, to see that happening, and good that these cabins are open. I hope they build more. But kudos to everybody for getting this done. Once they got those things, those cabins lined up, they really put on the effort to get that project finished, and then they finally done it. They're open, so, or they'll be opening very soon.
And I'm glad to see like what we had discussed earlier about Rabbit Valley with overcrowding, that Cheyenne Mountain State Park is sustainably growing, and in terms of campsites and cabins and all that. I know it's a slow process, but I'm glad to see that they're adapting.
Yeah, they've got the land for it, so that's a good thing. I think that was probably one of the, I shouldn't say one of the better. Well, I can't speak about how the park's been done, but it's obviously been a well planned and master planned park. They've done a really good job of it. And, they put the campsites over here. They've got some of the more backcountry stuff over here. When it came time to let dogs on the trails in the park, because, they weren't allowed, they figured out a way to do it kind of near where the people were, which is by the campsites, and how to manage that so that they could allow people to come there with their dogs and actually go on trails, but not interfere with the wildlife that's more common and more, there's more wildlife on the south end of the park than there might be in the north end because there's more people at the north end where the campgrounds are. So it's really it's been well managed, and I think it was well planned, a well planned park. I think they've done a good job with it, and then hopefully we'll see some more. Yeah, we'll see some more expansion. As time goes on, just have to wait and see what happens. Kevin, did you do any cool hikes over the last week?
Well, I did take a friend up to Loud's Cabin in Cheyenne Canyon area. We did this loop around Mount Buckhorn, went up to Loud's Cabin, and then came down via the Seven Bridges Trail. It's about an 8.5-mile loop. It's really nice. A lot less snow up there than I thought it would be. Obviously, the north-facing parts of the trail, there's a bit of snow, but it was more just patches of slushy snow, not like, oh, we're really just digging through the snow, trying to hike through it. And I've got to say, I know we've had a couple windstorms in the last few months that have been like record-breaking. There are hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of downed trees on the north-facing side of Bear Creek Canyon. It was actually kind of devastating to see how many trees have fallen, because I think in the future, like once those trees dry up and stuff, it just becomes a massive amount of tinder for wildfires. So that was definitely very, very sad to see. I just didn't realize how much worse the winds were up there, because the majority of these trees were alive and growing and thriving and such, not old dead trees that were getting weak and got knocked over. And then there's a massive tree that landed on top of the sign for Seven Bridges at the trailhead from Gold Camp Road. They've come through and fixed one of the bridges. I think it's bridge number 3, I think. Or 5? Okay, 5. Thank you. And where it was clear a tree went down, it broke the upper half or the railing of the bridge. So they got that fixed, but I'm surprised they haven't cut down the tree that's at the trailhead. I'm not sure if it's too big or what, but it's just kind of sad to see that there's so many down trees now.
I think that they did number 5 because it was actually a pretty good safety hazard up there. And I know that when you're talking about Rocky Mountain Field Institute went up there and did a quick emergency repair, cut that tree out of there. Although there was some people had already gone up there, my understanding, and kind of cut away some limbs, did an emergency repair on it. It's obviously going to need a more robust repair. The tree you're talking about, I saw that's on one of those ancient old cast iron signs.
Yeah.
With the cast iron, what's that, 1/2-inch plate that they use a torch to cut in the letters. And I think they're leaving it up there just to brag about how tough that sign is.
Yeah, I saw that. It's like, this sign is not dented or tilting or bent or anything. Like it's like the tree, like it cut through the tree like several inches. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of leaving that up there. Like, look at the signs we make. If they still made signs like that, that'd be awesome. They haven't made signs like that in many years. But I think that's kind of like that tree is what, like, I want to say it's like a foot in diameter, if it's, and I might even be underestimating. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, it's at least a foot. I mean, it's a larger tree and such.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. It's kind of funny to see that thing and look at that and go, wow, that's holding that up. None of these thin signs you see nowadays, but yeah, that cast iron. Are you doing anything to get ready for your Mount Whitney trip? Or you been doing any, was that part of this Louds Canyon thing? Just doing a little bit of exercise to get ready for it?
It was that, and the 2 people I am doing the Mount Whitney hike with, we are going up on a Saturday we're going to do the incline and then do the Manitou Experimental Forest loop and then come back down. And that's about a 13-mile round trip hike. And my friends were kind of like, oh, that sounds like a lot. I'm like, trust me, once we're done with the incline, it's mostly flat after that.
So are you going to go up between, the trail goes into the experimental forest, it goes in between Mount Manitou and what's the other one there? Rocky Mountain. Then are you going to come down that road, or are you going to loop back to Bar Trail?
we are going to loop back to Bar Trail. I mapped it out on the Coatrex app, and yeah, just go straight up the incline and then head to. Okay, so we're not going to go between Rocky Mountain and Mount Manitou. We're going to go to the left of them or the west of them and do this big loop. It looks like the trail is called French Creek.
Okay.
Then to Manitou Reservoir, and then back down is just connect back to Bar Trail and then come down back to the cars on Bar Trail.
One of the hikes I've been wanting to do, and I haven't done it yet, is to go up there either on Bar Trail or the incline, go around, go through the experimental forest, go between those two, and then there's that long road that comes up there. That's kind of the back way up there, and it's not open to the public, but I think it's called Long's Ranch Road that comes up there. And I search and rescue uses a route to get up there. Go down that road to where it meets the top end or the west end of the Ute Valley, the Ute Pass Trail, then hike the Ute Pass Trail back to the bottom of the incline or the bottom of Bar Trail. And I think that turns out to be about if I looked it up, and I looked it up on Coatrex too, I think that looked up to be about a 10-mile hike. And most of it would end up being kind of downhill, and then, along the Ute Pass Trail, which is mostly pretty flat, would be a nice little hike. So that's another one you might want to look at too, as part of a kind of a loop thing to do up that way. I once did bar camp by going up the incline, thinking I'll be smart. I'll do this. I'll cut off a couple miles. That was a dumb idea. Not one of my genius ideas to go up the incline. I should have just gone up Bar Trail.
And I know the incline isn't like there's not really any parts like that on Mount Whitney, but it's a fitness thing. And what's fun about the Coatrex app is just learning like there's all these other trails up there that you wouldn't think, because a lot of people think it's just the incline and then Bar Trail and that's it. There is an area that looks like it's best accessed by the Heiser Trail called Hurricane Canyon. And from what I've found online a little bit, it seems like a really pretty place to go hike into, despite the fact that Heiser Trail itself is a difficult trail because it's just a lot of climbing. But I just like the idea that there's a place here called Hurricane Canyon. It just sounds cool.
Yeah, if you come up the Heiser Trail from the north side, you get to the top, and like you said, it is a difficult hike up there. The views are beautiful from the top there of Pikes Peak. And then you go down the other side, and you hit a trail intersection right on the other side there, and it's by the Manitou Reservoir, which is way back in there. If you turn left, it's a Hurricane Trail. The Hurricane Canyon. If you turn right, it takes you back up to the Bar Trail, and that's a pretty rugged hike up through there. It's not one of the more used trails. And then from there, if you want to do it like a car shuttle, you can hike back down to the Bar Trail and come out in Manitou Springs. You do kind of like a car shuttle or something like that. I've done that hike before. I want to say I've done it to Bar Camp or Bar Trail and back. And I want to say it was about 10 miles. Okay. I don't have Coatrex. It's been a couple of years since I've done it, so don't quote me on that. And actually, the worst part of it is just getting up the Heiser Trail. The Heiser Trail is on private property, but access is allowed for the public to go up there. And I'm actually surprised as a private trail, it's actually listed on Coatrex. But apparently, they worked out some agreement, because if you click on it, it shows up as being owned by El Paso County. So I think they worked out some agreement. But anyway, that's a really nice trail to go up. And it's actually a whole lot easier when you come down the other side. From opposite from where you come up, you come up from the street, come back down. That's actually really nice in that area. And it's kind of a nice trail. So yeah, there's some options there for you guys to work on as you get ready for Mount Whitney.
Yeah, and we do plan on a full round trip, 1-day Pikes Peak hike via Bar Trail, which is 26 miles round trip, over 7,000 feet of elevation gain. We do plan on that before the Mount Whitney hike. But we're going to wait, obviously, until probably June, until there's enough snow off the peak.
There was a rescue on Pikes Peak this past week. Somebody went up there and checked in at bar camp, and there was the details are sketchy, and we never really find out, but it sounded like the person started from bar camp for the summit in the evening and ended up being a search and rescue. Fortunately, they were found okay and taken out of there with no issue. So At least that one had a happy ending, but I'm a little confused as to what actually happened up there.
I saw that, and I felt that's a good case of example of why you should always check the forecast. Because from what I remember, he hiked up on last Monday, when the weather was really, really nice. And then the forecast showed the weather on Tuesday and Wednesday was going to be like cold and rainy, which up on Pikes Peak will likely mean it's even colder and snowing.
Or icy.
Yeah. And so I'm just glad that he was found safe and alive. Apparently he was hurt, but I couldn't find any more details on that. So I'm assuming he got injured and just couldn't make his way back down. But I'm just glad that turned out fine. Even if you make a trip across the country for a hike, if the forecast is showing that it's gonna be bad, it's not worth it.
Well, at least he wasn't like the guy here in Arizona where I'm at right now. In Flagstaff, had to be rescued twice in 2 days on the same trail. So at least, and that turned out okay too for that person. But at least it wasn't that that bad. So Kevin, I think that's all I got for today. You have anything else you want to talk about while we're still here?
No, I'm just ramping up for training for Mount Whitney to get back in shape. Because the last 2 years for me have been like more on the mild side of hiking. So I'm ready to get back into more hardcore stuff. And this warming weather has been amazing. I'm loving it.
Well, you should have been down here today because I did a 9+ mile loop in a place called White Tank Regional Park. It takes about 40 minutes to get there from where we're at on the west side of Maricopa County. And there's not an easy trail in that park. I should say there's one easy trail in that park. They're all rugged. And the one I did today was a loop I hadn't done before. 9+ miles. The first 4 of it are steady climb uphill. And then you come downhill, and then you kind of get in this dry wash where it's easy to get lost. There are arrows there. And at one point I ended up kind of on this cliff face trying to figure out how to get down. And it's because one of the markers was up over my head and kind of behind something, and I missed it, and I made a left when I should have gone right. Found it and was able to get down there, but there's a couple miles of that trail, and they show it on the map where they tell you it is rocky, rugged, unimproved, dangerous. But I went up there, did not take cold with me. When I started, the temperature was in the mid-80s. When I got back, when I got done, it was in the mid-90s, and we're having pretty warm weather here. In any case, that's kind of what my most recent hike was, but I recorded some video. I've got a lot of video stored up. I need bad weather so I can stay inside and just kind of work on doing stuff. But the weather's nice. I don't want to stay inside.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. Well, Kevin, I think we'll say goodbye to everybody.
Sounds good.
All right, Kevin. Well, thanks a lot. And everybody, thanks for listening to the Outdoors with Hiking Bob podcast.
We'll talk to you later.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us, because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.